name is Joe Wilson. I'm here for reference to a little baby girl, Fanta Bility. It has touched my heart since August the 27th when this first happened. The bloodshed of that baby, the murder of that baby, that's why I'm here. And I promised her father that I will never let her memory die. And I will be here to the end to seek justice for the loss of that baby, that bloodshed of that baby. Not only her, but her sister, Massa, as well, who was shot. I thank you. I thank you.
Well, all I want to say is that I'm glad that everybody's coming together. I'm glad that it's starting to get some notice about the injustice being done in this situation. It's sad that Fanta Bility has been killed, and the people who killed her is not being held accountable publicly. And I hope that eventually that will be done and that justice will be served.
We would like to have justice for everyone involved in this situation. It's a situation that we really shouldn't be in at this time, and we're just hoping to make it better and get the right thing done for everybody involved. Thank you.
I'm Africa. I'm the International Concerned Family and Friends of Mumia Abu Jamal. My family, 13 members, was murdered by the police in Philadelphia. And you know, an injustice to one is an injustice to all. Our thing is, my reason for being here, and because just like on May 13th and all the other murders, you know, thereafter and coming, and we're here to ensure and to be a part of any movement. We didn't come here to lead, we come here to be a part of who's leading this and do whatever we can using our social media, our voices on the radio to make sure justice for little young sister and for the two brothers and that has been framed. Yes, they did allegedly, I must say, commit a crime, and but it's a fact that someone in the police department killed a 9-year-old child and turned around and blamed it and on two youth that was, I don't even know what it was that they were doing, and but they did not kill this young sister. No way in the world these children should be in jail for these crimes, you know, for this particular crime. So I'm going to be here next Tuesday, and I'm urging everybody that I know within the listening of my voice and others, and to be here next Tuesday, and because the only way this is going to stop is that we stop it.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
We stand here today mourning the loss of beautiful life, a life cut short far too soon. Fanta Bility, at the tender age of 8 years old, was struck and killed on the night of August 27th. The bullets fired by Sharon Hill police officers. This tragedy occurred directly after attending Academy Park High School's football game with her family, and unbeknown to her family, this would be the last night they would hear the innocence of her laughter, witness the curve of her smile, and see the light and joy in her eyes. We are here because Fanta's life mattered.
Right.
Her family matters.
Right.
Her community and everyone whose life she touched mattered.
That's right.
Our district attorney, Jack Stolzheimer, needs to remember that all of his constituents matter.
That's right. That's right.
We still do not know the names of the officers who killed this innocent child.
Give up the names.
We want the names.
Jack came out in the beginning and said it was probable, most likely, that Fanta was killed by Sharon Hill police officers. But then as time continued on, The family was not getting answers. There was no transparency. Jack is forgetting who got him elected.
That's right.
At this point, I believe he is only interested in what is serving him and not what's best for the community that he was elected to serve.
That's right.
So we also stand here today not only because the Sharon Hill Police need to be held accountable, but our own district attorney needs to be held accountable as well. There's no more faith in Jack. There's no trust in Jack for him to do the right thing moving forward. We're not going to let this be swept under the rug. We will never forget the tragedy that occurred that night in Sharon Hill Borough, here in our own backyard in Delaware County. And moving forward, we need to be sure this never happens to another family.
That's right.
Today's speakers will include Rita Waters, a child of the 60s, Sean Damon from Amistad Law Project, Nia Halston from Abolitionist Law Center, and Kyle McIntyre from UDTJ. Before I pass this along to Rita Waters, and we thank you, Rita, for joining us. Once again, on behalf of UDTJ, Delco Resist, and the families, we want to thank you all for being here and remind you this is going to be a long road. We need you here every time with us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my woke friends from all over the place. I'm Baptist, so we gotta have some interaction here. My name is Rita Waters. I am a child of the 60s, and I am a veteran of 60s protests and marches. Y'all are much more organized than we were. I've lived in Delaware County since 1976, and the county looked very different then. Very, very different then. My kids all graduated from Upper Darby schools. But the more things change, the more they stay the same.
That's true.
I am here because I am upset about the killing of an 8-year-old child. I am upset about the power of the police, that they can shoot in a crowd randomly because they think that these 2 young black men who have been arrested and are now underneath the jail, while the cops, we had other names for them in the 60s, are shielded by the grand jury that was convened by Jack. And I have some Black Caucus friends, raise your hands. We worked real hard to elect Jack. I have some of my woke friends from Haverford. We worked hard to elect Jack. And Boyfriend is speaking out of both sides of his mouth. So we, as an organization, we as woke people, we need to do something about this. It's not enough to come to a rally. It's not enough to watch the news. It's more than enough for you to get out in the street, support our young friends here, and make your voices heard. My dad was a lawyer and a civil rights attorney. And I looked at him as the model of integrity and ethics. He raised me to speak out against injustice, against murder, and against things that aren't right. And what's going on in this county and across the country is not right. I mean, y'all heard about the shooting in California, where the cops went into a dressing room and a young kid was killed. We've got to stop this madness. While the police are free on administrative duties are teenagers, and nobody is saying they're not guilty of other things, but not first-degree murder.
That's right.
Okay? They underneath the jail. And where is Fanta? Fanta is dead, my friends. So we need to raise our voices, get our feet on the ground and march. And more important, when the current DA comes up for re-election, we need not to support him. I thank you very much. I want to thank Ashley and Kyle and Diamond.
Our next speaker is Sean Damon from Amistad Law Project.
Thank you. Hey y'all, my name is Sean Damon. I'm the organizing director of Amistad Law Project, and I'm a steering committee member of Free the Ballot Incarcerated Voter Family Network, which actually knocked thousands of doors in support of Jack Stolzheimer when he was running as a reform candidate. I hadn't planned to speak here today, but I wanted to say a few things about this horrific tragedy which has happened out here in Delco. The first thing I want to say is that Jack Stolzheimer ran as a reform candidate. I was born and raised in Delco, and I think that's primarily the perspective I'm speaking from today. And I saw more racism and injustice out in Delco in many years than I can really even talk about if I had all day on this mic. But Jack ran a race and promised change.
That's what he promised.
He promised accountability, and he promised a fairer justice system.
That's what he said.
What he has done is absolutely shameful. This is a tragedy. It's a horrible, horrible tragedy that the Sharon Hill police killed this young, precious girl.
That's right.
But to add insult to injury, Jack took 2 young black men and he charged them with first-degree murder for a killing that the cops objectively committed. There's no argument about that.
That ain't right.
It's not right at all. Not right at all.
Making them the
He
scapegoat.
is offering up these young people, these children, because let's be clear, these are teenagers that are being offered up by Jack as a distraction and a deflection away from holding the police accountable for what they did.
It ain't right. Modern day lynching.
That's right. That's right. And what I want to say today is that if Jack wants to try to deflect accountability away from the police, we have to amplify our efforts as regular people to hold both the Sharon Hill police and Jack Stolzheimer accountable. We cannot let this injustice stand. And I want to say that the important thing for all of us to do here today is to follow the organizations of the young people out here in Delco who are organizing in coordination with the families in pursuit of justice.
That's right.
Because it's their energy, the energy of Delco Resists, of UTDJ, that has brought this struggle to the courthouse today.
right.
And because they're persistent and they're fierce, they've gotten the Springfield Democrats, the Upper Darby Democrats have issued statements, and we need just to continue these efforts to get the Delco Democrats and other Democratic committees to do what's right and to stand up for accountability, both of the DA and the Sharon Hill police. So I just want to thank everybody for listening to me today. And I also want to thank the elected officials who have come out here in support, and, hats off to Jamie and her colleagues on council for issuing a statement. We need more voices. We need the Springfield Democrats, we need Philly City Council, we need people in office, people running for office, anybody, we need unions, we need everybody who has a megaphone to use it and call for justice, call for accountability of the police, and call for these bogus, ridiculous, shameful murder charges against these young people to be dropped. Thank you.
Before I introduce our next speaker, I do want to take a moment to say thank you, Sean, but there are also people helping behind Delco Resists and UDTJ. We are community supported, and there are many, many people, too many to name, that have also been so very helpful. So I wanted to take a moment to express our gratitude. And our next speaker is Nia Holston from the Abolitionist Law Center.
That's right.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Nia Holston, and I'm a staff attorney with the Abolitionist Law Center. We're a nonprofit based in Pennsylvania, dedicated to dismantling the system of mass incarceration in all its forms, and dedicated to the liberation of Black and brown people used as pawns in the system of racialized capitalism.
That's right.
We have been following Fanta's heartbreaking story since news reports first broke back in August. We have worked to support efforts to get justice for Fanta, who was such a beautiful, precious little girl, precious to her family and to this community. And what I've seen certain threads emerge following this case for the past few months, and I want to focus on one: the contempt and disrespect that the government officials have displayed toward Black life. First, I want to talk about the initial news reports steeped in typical crime narratives about Black criminality. You see, they assumed that Fanta was killed by someone in the community, another life lost due to senseless gun violence. That of course, if someone was shot, they must have been shot by another Black person. Just another episode of Black on Black crime that feeds into the government's thirst for more punitive measures that harm Black communities. Then, when District Attorney Stolzheimer was forced to admit that the investigation showed that police officers, who, by the way, are supposed to have training, who are supposed to know gun safety, who are allegedly supposed to serve and protect and not harm the community, actually shot and killed her, his response was egregious. These 3 officers fired at least 21 shots into a crowded area filled with Black children and their families. It ain't right. And instead of holding these officers accountable by naming them, by arresting them, by having them fired, he gave typical platitudes about wanting to get justice for her family, supposedly said all of the right things, but the people knew sooner than later that something was amiss. And these officers, by the way, remain on paid leave. And then Stolzheimer, who, let me remind you, ran on a platform of reform, ran on a platform of racial justice. Stolzheimer, who likely has political ambitions beyond Delaware County, who likely needs the support of the FOP.
Not anymore.
Stolzheimer announces charges in AJ Ford, a 16-year-old teenager, and Hassan Strand, barely 18 years old, with first-degree murder. Now, let me tell you why that shows his in the district. Delaware County District Attorney's Office's blatant disrespect for Fanta's family and blatant contempt for Black life. He knows who shot her. He knows it was police. If it was anyone else but police, what would have happened? They would have been immediately charged and criminal proceedings would have been brought.
That's right.
And let me tell you, as a former criminal defense attorney, I know that for many of my clients, it's charge first and hope you get a good defense attorney who will challenge the prosecutor's decisions. But he decides to convene a grand jury to shift away from his power to charge them outright and put it in the hands of a jury where he controls the questioning. That grand jury is still ongoing, but don't be surprised when you don't see accountability there. We've seen this story all across the country. Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Mike Brown. And even then, he could have referred to the case to the Attorney General's office to conduct an impartial investigation.
That's right.
And how can Stolzheimer be impartial when he has to work with the same police officers every single day? Has he done anything to ensure that he can be impartial?
No.
But for these 2 boys, now I'm not excusing any of their alleged actions, he takes a completely different track. He publishes their mugshots.
What?
He charges a child as an adult.
What?
He charges them with first-degree murder, charges that legal experts across the country say should not stand. And that's a common tactic in DA's offices.
Yeah, it is.
Overcharge so that you can force the defendant, who's not left with very many good options, to plead guilty to lesser charges.
Yeah.
First-degree murder charges can carry a penalty of life without parole. It also means, according to Stolzheimer's statement, that AJ Ford and Hassan Strand get held in jail without bail until their cases are resolved, which means they are 2 teenagers held in adult jails. Now, I cannot speak for their specific conditions, but I can tell you based on my legal experience what it likely means. There are too many dangers to count when children are held in adult jails. But on top of that, these are COVID-infested jails. Yes. Programming is likely shut down, And if there is any programming, it's minimal. They may experience total lockdown periods. They may not be receiving proper recreation time. They may be experiences that are similar to solitary confinement, which human rights organizations have labeled as torture. That is what DA Stolzheimer thinks of these two children who didn't kill anyone. That's what he thinks they deserve. That is what he thinks of Black life, all while the officers in her case got to enjoy the holidays with their families.
Say it again. Say it again.
But while I am aware of the blatant disrespect and contempt, I am hopeful. I know that there is always hope when people mobilize, when we come together to speak out against injustice. I don't believe in District Attorney Stolzheimer, but I believe in us. I believe that when we are bold enough to challenge these systems, to demand change, to demand that we deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, that change does happen. So keep fighting, keep being bold, keep the memory of Fanta alive, pray for her family, do the work of organizing to push for justice. And I'm with you, and we are all with you. Thank you.
Thank you again, Nia. Kyle McIntyre of UDTJ.
Good afternoon. I want to begin with thanking everyone for coming out on this brisk Thursday to stand united in our calls for justice for the family of Fanta, Haseen, and AJ. Most importantly, we want to stand united in seeking accountability against the officers who recklessly discharged their weapons into the crowd, resulting in the death of 8-year-old Fanta.
That's what they did.
However, it's not just one life that could be lost. Our district attorney has filed charges against 2 teenagers, AJ and Haseen, that place them at fault for the police's actions. The sentences for those charges carries the minimum of life in prison without parole. For a 16-year-old and an barely 18-year-old. It is unjust when Jack's own words have confirmed with, quote, near certainty it was the officer's bullets that hit and killed Fanta, end of quote. That is not up for debate. We take issue with specifically the first-degree murder charges leveled against Haseen and AJ, as it would require premeditation, meaning it was planned attempted murder. Yet it was in fact the bullets from 140 feet away that would take Fanta's life and injure 5 others.
Outrageous.
It is disingenuous to state that the gunfire a block away immediately triggered a response from the Sharon Hill police. In fact, there was a significant delay in reaction time, as is noted by public knowledge. However, the DA's office continues to misrepresent the 12 seconds between the end of the gunfire at a block away and the beginning of the 3 Sharon Hill police officers blindly unloading their clips into a crowd when any active shooter threat had ended. To give you perspective, 12 seconds is the length of time of the very first flight by the Wright brothers. So don't tell us that it's a short period of time. It's plenty of time for an officer supposedly trained to protect the community to make an intelligent life and death decision.
That's right.
Instead of holding the Sharon Hill PD accountable for the clear and negligent lack of training, the district attorney's office and self-proclaimed reformer, Jack Stolzheimer, have filed charges that place the responsibility for the officer's killing of Fanta on 2 black teenagers. Not only is the community not buying it, we see through the double standard in this application of the justice process.
That's right.
A grand jury for the officers before charges are even filed, but for the black teenagers, they receive no grand jury and are facing charges that have a minimum sentencing of life without parole. In truth, as a result of District Attorney Stolzheimer's actions, we risk losing the lives of 2 more black youths with the death penalty through life in prison.
Death by incarceration.
And let us not forget that as a result of the charges Jack filed, the teens were denied bail and have spent their holidays in jail while the officers responsible for Fanta's death enjoyed the holidays from the comfort of their own home. Let us not forget that while the officers have had their anonymity preserved, the teenagers have not. Let us not forget that AJ and Haseen have been placed at higher risk of contracting COVID-19 while incarcerated without bail, while the officers have not. Jack Solsteimer ran on promises of criminal justice reform. Instead of reform, we have a district attorney who places the interest of the FOP above those of the community that worked tirelessly to put him where he is today. We will not forget. Today is AJ's preliminary hearing and is taking place, and as a result of the courts moving the dates, well, I'll finish my sentence because that addresses that then. As a result of the courts continuingly to move the dates, Haseen's has been moved to the upcoming Tuesday, January 18th at 9 a.m. That is this Tuesday. And even more insultingly, the day right after Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. Not only has it been an egregiously untransparent process with the families not receiving notice from the courts as is required by law, but in fact we've had police departments announcing date changes for Haseen's case before the family and the attorney were even notified. So do not tell us the FOP is not involved and is not actively putting their weight on the scales of justice. We are no longer asking, we are demanding.
That's right.
We are demanding Jack commit to his promises of equitable justice that he campaigned on, that the district attorney's office immediately withdraw the first-degree murder charges against AJ and Haseen, that they release the name of the officers at the earliest possible availability, that they file charges against the officers at the conclusion of the grand jury, and that Sharon Hill Police Department terminate the employment of those 3 officers. We further demand that the DA recuse himself from all further cases regarding police misconduct and transfer them to the OAG for the remainder of his first and only term as our district attorney. If we do not get it, we will shut it down. We will be back out here showing up for Haseen in front of the media courthouse this Tuesday, January 18th at 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. to protest and rally once more. We ask you all to be back out here with us. Bring your friends, and let's do everything we can to ensure that we do not allow these injustices to continue in our county. This road will not always be easy. It will not always be convenient. It will not always be comfortable. But the alternative is way more difficult, way more inconvenient, and way more uncomfortable. So join us, follow UDTJ and Delco Resist on our social media, stay informed, join the organizers, and together, with the family leading the charge, we will bring this county into the 21st century with true and equitable justice for all. We cannot and will not be blind. We cannot and will not be complacent. We cannot and will not accept this status quo. And we cannot and will not stop until the family of Fanta Bility receives the justice they so rightfully deserve. Say her name! Say her name! Thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted to thank everybody again for coming out here. The fight is far from over. And again, please come out on Tuesday, 9 a.m., because that is the day of Haseen's court hearing, and he deserves support as well. These 2 young men deserve the support of the community, and they deserve for the officers to be held accountable for murdering Fanta, because the officers are who did it. Yes. Haseen and AJ did not. Thank you all again for coming.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Justice for Fanta!
Justice for Fanta!
Justice for AJ!
Justice for AJ!
Justice for Haseen!
Justice for Haseen!
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
If we don't get it,
Shut it down!
if we don't get it,
Shut it down!
if we don't get it,
Shut it down!
Hi, I'm a Democrat from Glen Olson, and Jack Stolzheimer. I walked him around my neighborhood. And I'm so disgusted by him. We need somebody to supervise Jack. Hit the road, Jack! Hit the road, Jack! Hit the road, Jack! Hit the road, Jack!
No justice! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!